All right, we talked about how leaders and organizations that don't prioritize organizational health really in the new world will not last. And the cracks are beginning to show of the many ways that the old forms of leadership just have not worked. And so what we have previously deemed as soft skills, which is creating intellectual, and now we're going to talk about behavioral alignment. Research is now starting to show that because every one employee is going to leave, this is anything but soft. It's actually really hard to lose that much talent and to ultimately lose that much revenue as well, or that much money in the long run. And so, businesses naturally and business teams naturally drift towards dysfunction. And that's why we come to the second pillar within what it means to create a culture of care. Last video we talked about C, which stands for clarity. This video we're going to look at A, which stands for alignment. We're going to talk about what does it look like to create behavioral alignment. And in my opinion, Patrick Lencioni has developed one of the most robust, comprehensive frameworks for teams to look at this as a whole. And so if you go to the website soulfulleading.com, you can actually download a team health checklist for free. So you can begin to create this on your own now. And so what does it look like to create alignment, behavioral alignment? Well, number one, it requires radical vulnerability-based trust. It means that you're beginning to open up as a leader. You're doing leader goes first, and you are beginning to help others to understand who you are, why you're leading the way you are, why you're thinking the way you are. You're learning about others. Others are learning about you. You're creating vulnerability-based trust. I know of no other resource that is better at this than some of Brene Brown's resources. On Braving the Wilderness is an incredible resource. Obviously, Pat Lencioni's book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, Simon Sinek's book, Leaders Eat Last, and also The Infinite Game. Highly recommend all of those materials. What does it look like for you to create vulnerability-based trust? All right. Secondly, under this second pillar of alignment is not just creating vulnerability-based trust, it's also mining for conflict. Teams don't lose because they have conflict. They often lose because they don't have the right kind of or the right amount of conflict. As a former organizational leader, as a pastor, I've seen this within my own teams and my own communities. People are often afraid to have the right kind of conflict, or when they do have the kind of conflict, they're not adhering to the kind of value behaviors that they've landed on how they're going to interact with one another. And so what does it look like for you to have the right kinds of conflict? It means you're pursuing ideological debate, often passionately. You are attacking the problem, not the person. And you are learning to honor one another's opinions and ideas. This requires knowing how one another works. This is where behavioral assessments are very helpful, like Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, 5 voices. It's very necessary to know what does it look like to be on the other side of me, because each individual has a unique weapon system. There are some who are nurturers, and they're going to be naturally more quiet in the organizational team, and it's the job of the leader to elicit the response of the nurturer, the one who has the quiet voice first. There are pioneers who are going to have the loudest voice, and their weapon system is going to be loud and brash, and oftentimes will create some kind of a toxic effect afterward, but they won't even know it, because for them, they're so used to creating radical and loud kinds of conflict. So it's so important to know yourself and to know the people that you lead. That's conflict. Up the pyramid is once we've created this kind of conflict, then what does it look like for us to create very clear commitments together? What are we committed to causing? What are we committed to creating? Who's going to do what by when are the very critical important questions. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with teams, and a large majority of the time that's being wasted is around unclear and unkept agreements. It's been estimated that upwards of, I think only 40-something% of commitments are actually kept in the workplace. The majority of commitments that we make are very unclear. So how much time is being wasted by the commitments that we're just unclear around? And then the fourth layer in this pyramid is around accountability. In order for us to create full alignment, we want to move from a place of vulnerability-based trust to mining for conflict. We're really not settling for the corporate nod and people just agreeing with our ideas. We want to understand by some very clear tools. We use Fist to 5. We use a slew of other tools to help people figure out if they're getting at the right kind of conflict so that they can create the right kind of commitment so they can hold one another accountable. It's really the job of the leader to create a culture of feedback where peer-to-peer accountability is starting to happen. And once you can create that kind of accountability where we're holding one another accountable on the areas of clarity and behavioral alignment, then we're going to get to a place where we're seeking to achieve collective results. Collective results is what really sets a team apart from a working group. A working group is like a golf team. It's each individual player shooting their best score, coming together at the end of the day to compare their notes. A working group functions more like a basketball team where it's a jazz sort of musical ensemble. People are learning how one another shows up on the court where each person moves. Again, shout out to Phil Jackson's book, 11 Rings. Highly recommend it as an organizational book. But once you begin to move toward collective results, you're now functioning much more like a team. So highly recommend checking out some of the resources that I mentioned. You can also go to soulfulleading.com and pick up that resource on organizational health checklists. Until next time, continue to prioritize organizational health and your individual health. Peace.